knees. And those were the good old days.
Thank you so much for going down memory lane. But let me take you back and tell you the story. A story about my Papa Lowell and my Uncle George Swisher. Both of them had passed away. My Uncle George had passed away earlier this year, a couple months ago, or about a month ago, on April of 2008. Both of them were, my Papa Lowell was the most remarkable man I ever met. My Uncle Greg Giacometti, he is the most intelligent man I ever met. And my Uncle George Swisher, he was he was probably one of the funniest men that I ever met. Uncle George always cracked a joke. He always had something funny to say, and Uncle George had basically said that rated PG meant that guy gets girl, rated R means girl gets girl, and rated XXX means everybody gets the girl. Uncle George always had a real funny thing. Like one of his jokes was, you see a cat, or excuse me, you see a cow walk into a church with a cat on its back, and on the cat's back is a rabbit. What do you say? Holy cow! Look at the hair on that pussy. Nonetheless, Uncle George, like I said, he is probably one of the funniest men that I ever met. And Uncle George and Papa, I love him and I miss him. And I know I haven't seen Uncle George prior to his passing away. I've been living in Indiana for about 5 years, haven't seen him, but I want to. Uncle George, Uncle George, I loved Uncle George, I really did. Nonetheless, Papa Lowell and Uncle George, Papa Lowell would buy boats for cheap. He'd buy boats for cheap, and Uncle George was the carpenter of it all, and him and Papa Lowell get inside. Papa Lowell was usually the brains of the outfit. Uncle George would do the work. Papa Lowell would buy the supplies, and he'd do the work to Uncle George. They'd get the boats and they'd get them for cheap and then sell them, fix them up and then sell them, if you will, excuse me. And real estate, they'd done a lot of real estate. My Papa Lowell had a bunch of houses that he had bought for cheap, fixing them up and renting them out to people and whatnot. And like I said, once again, Uncle George went in and Papa Lowell bought the supplies, and him and Uncle George went in. He'd done what he had to do, being partially blind as he was, and him and Uncle George would go in and they would fix up these houses, and they would profit for it. Uncle George and Papa Lowell would get they would split the money 50-50 with whatever it was there that for the boats and for the real estate. The houses after Papa Lowell had passed, the houses, one house went to my mom, the house on H Street went to Aunt Patty until it caught fire. My Aunt Sue got a house on Edwin. My Aunt Betty, or Aunt Bodie, had gotten a house, I believe, on Chester, and a house on Woodland. And I believe she sold those for profit at one point or another, if I'm mistaken. If I'm wrong, I apologize for that. But nonetheless, boat and real estate salesmen is what Papa Lowell and Uncle George was. And like I said, I miss Papa Lowell something fierce, and Uncle George has passed away, and I miss Uncle George as well. Like I said, Uncle George is one of the funniest man that I ever met. He always had a joke to crack, and Uncle George was a real good man, and I loved Uncle George, and I love Papa Lowell. Uncle George and Papa Lowell, I know you're up there at the pearly gates, up there raising hell, fishing, selling boats, and selling houses, and doing whatever you do. I miss you too, and I love you. And for those of you who are viewing this, thank you so much for going down memory lane with me. I'll catch you next time.